And for so many, especially anxious attachment style, you just want to be saved. I just want to be out of here. I don't want to go through this anymore. Why can't I just find somebody that's going to come and get me? And the reality is that that's nobody's job but yourself.
Welcome to season 3 of Self-Care-ish, a show about being selfish with care. I'm Megan, and each week we riff on different ways to re-nourish yourself after a divorce, or if you're on a dating or self-dating journey. Either way, I'm so happy we found each other. Let's get into it. If you are one of the 90% of listeners to this show who are currently or recently going through a divorce or a breakup, then I am speaking to you specifically right now. I know it feels like you're in a war zone, or maybe you just feel a little bit isolated, or that you're the only one going through this. And I know that because I've been there. And one of the things I wanted when I was in your position was to just have a community of people who are in the exact same place as me, or even people who have been there and come out the other side. And something I'm super passionate about is destigmatizing divorce as a concept. And that's what I hope to achieve with the Dynamic Detachment program and community. In last week's episode, I mentioned that around the middle of this year, I'll be launching the first Dynamic Detachment program. And it's going to be a 6-module system to get you feeling great and back on your feet when all around you feels like it's totally falling apart. And you're going to be brought into an intimate community of people who 100% get what you're feeling and get where you're coming from. And if you want to know more, or if you just want to get on the wait list to learn more, it's at selfcare-ish or selfcare-ish.com.au/dynamic detachment. And I am going to be keeping this to specific numbers because I have a bit of a plan in mind for what we're going to do, but there's heaps of info on the page. I'll be updating it with more, so stay tuned. The link's in the show notes. Either way, let's get into it. If the title of this episode gave you a moment's pause, you're not alone. It's a really weird feeling when you start to self-reflect. On one hand, you're like, great, I'm learning so much about myself, yay! And on the other hand, you're like, stop, I hate this. Let me go back into my own little cave of Delulu. I know. And don't get me wrong, a little Delulu is good sometimes, but not when you're trying to flush out your post-divorce or post-breakup emotions. I think of it as emotional antiseptic, or like that gumption stuff that you use in the shower that helps cleans out your old habits and programs and systems like they're the grime in your tiling. Like you need to get some elbow grease in there, but that feeling of satisfaction after, chef's kiss, priceless. Actually, I've just reminded myself I really need to clean my shower after recording this. It's bad in there. But coming to terms with your patterns of attraction is a bit of a thing. But it is a worthwhile thing if you want to have a healthy relationship with someone else, and more importantly, with yourself in the future. And the topic of today's episode is something that really struck a chord with me. Are you looking for love, or are you looking to be rescued? Just take a minute to let that question seep in, because it reminded me of when I first separated from my ex-husband and I immediately jumped on Hinge. And I definitely justified it by saying, well, we were over years before we were separated, so in a way, I'm 2 years behind. Bad joke, but kind of how I felt. But on further reflection, I know it's because I was looking for rescue. Not literally in terms of I needed saving, but definitely rescued from my emotions. I wanted distraction. I wanted to feel wanted and sexy, and I wanted to have something, inverted commas, good in my life because everything else just did not feel great. Even though I knew we were doing the right thing by separating. Breaking up is so incredibly painful. It is difficult for anyone to go through it. And so what you find is a lot of people turn to new relationships to provide this emotional life raft for themselves. Because sometimes being single is hard. And it can be freeing, but it can also be kind of lonely sometimes. Although, I argue, some bad marriages or relationships can even be lonelier than being single. And in this economy, it is practically a luxury to be able to live in a place on your own. So, yeah, people do turn to relationships for rescue from the physical hardships of life, too. So, there's multiple ways to be rescued: physical, emotional, pick one, or pick both. This is the situation we're in, and I'm not here to demonize anyone who makes that decision. I understand it. But what my goal is with this episode is to put a flag in it and say, let's look at this and see if this might be driving a lot of people to enter relationships that aren't right for them, leading to another inevitable breakup down the road. And the person who turned me on to this concept, the one, the only, Sabrina Zohar of the Do the Work podcast. Sabrina is no bones about it, one of the most dynamic speakers in the dating space. Not only is she incredibly authentic and honest about her own growth journey, but she uses that experience to provide people with advice served with just the right amount of tough love that sometimes we all need, you know? I was actually sent Sabrina's podcast by a listener who requested that I reach out to her. And because I like to have a bit of a personal connection with everyone I have on the show, I took a month or so to really digest her content. And I already followed her on TikTok, but her podcast episodes are where some of the real gold is. And this line, "Are you looking for love or are you looking to be rescued?" was just a little innocuous thing that she mentioned as part of a larger episode, but it just marinated in my brain. And I knew I had to ask her about it. So this morning at 5 a.m. Gold Coast time, Sabrina and I got together and riffed on an issue that I think a lot of us feel or have felt at some point or another. And she also gave tips on how to fix it. Enjoy. Okay, firstly, Sabrina Zohar, I thank you so much for being on the show. And I know a lot of people around the world know who you are. But for people who don't know, you have basically single-handedly helped save the TikTok generation from years of relationship trauma. But if you had to sum yourself up for people who are uninitiated, how do you describe yourself and what you do?
So in a nutshell, I'm a dating coach and the host of Do the Work podcast. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have a couple of businesses as well. And for me, I'm not a therapist, but I'm just a coach that's so sick and tired of the bullshit. And I don't sugarcoat it. And I have everyday people tell me, this is harsh. And it's like, listen, babe, the coddling, clearly the coddling hasn't helped you, because now everything is my feelings are fact. And I'm the one to come and say, your feelings are valid, but it doesn't mean it's fact. So I really love to call people out on their bullshit and to shake up the norms, because I think if I trigger people or I get people to be emotional about something, it's like, then I've done my job, because I've been able to get a reaction out of you to start thinking.
I just love that approach. And actually, something you said in one of your recent episodes, and I think it relates to that, and I'm going a little bit off piste here. You said you completely reframed how you work with people this year. So what does that look like? And you do work with a lot of people, don't you?
Yeah, I had to kind of redo it, because last year I had 47 new people, 45 to 60 new people every month. And it was it's a lot of the typical, I want the quick fix. Okay, like you'll sit with me for 45 minutes and at the end they're like, okay, well, I still feel sad. It's like, welcome to being a human. Like, talking to somebody for 45 minutes doesn't mean that you're going to have this come to Jesus moment, but healing really happens in the interim. It happens in the implementation stage. It doesn't, you can have in therapy and in these moments, these aha moments. It's like, well, what are you going to do with the aha moments? The awareness isn't necessarily when things start to shift. It's how do you implement and the tools that you use, which is why I kind of had to reframe everything, because to really see real success, I have to first take 63 days for a pattern to become a routine and to become like ingrained in your life. So if that means that we have to do something for 63 days, that means that no minimum than 3 months, somebody needs to be investing in themselves, because I think the number one thing I hear is like, how do I heal? How do I do it? How'd you do it? It's like, how I did it was I ate shit for the last 7 years, and I face demons, and I cry, and I feel, and I let it out, and I process, and I do all of these things. That doesn't happen in a 45-minute conversation.
That is so true. And I wanted to ask you, from my own personal brain, you share so openly about your experiences in dating and your romantic history all on TikTok and online. Initially, when you started, were there any moments when you were like, this is hard and it's hard to share? I feel exposed right now.
Yeah, I think when I almost deleted everything was my first viral video where I was vulnerable about sharing that this guy, like I'd seen like a piece of content that sparked within me, like, oh, that's why, like, I hooked up with this guy a few times. We had been dating, and why it changed wasn't because we had hooked up, like we'd been hooking up. It's because the circumstances changed. And so I made this video of how like the circumstances change and blah, blah. And it went 2 million. And the trolls were, because they took on to that I said we hooked up. And I was like, no, 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 I meant that night. Like in general, that night we hooked up and then we went to bed. I was like, we had already been dating each other for 2 months. And they created like this guy slut shamed me, and he made this YouTube video how I'm a slut and I'm all these things and making me out. And in that moment, that was the moment where I was like, I'm fucking done. I was like, I'm going to delete everything. I don't know why I'm doing this. Because putting yourself out there means that like you're susceptible to being judged and you're susceptible to doing all those things. But like Brene Brown says, if you're not out there, you have no right to say anything about being out there. And it's like, who the fuck are you to come and judge me for how I present myself and for the stories that I share when you're so fucking scared to even show your face on the internet, user 7,453 million? Like, you can't even pony up to share an experience, but yet you're going to talk to me about my experiences that I do share. I don't have patience for that shit.
I love that.
Did almost throw the towel in many a fucking times. I don't know about you.
I go through it multiple times a week, a day. It's scary. Yeah, it's the people you see who are looking but not liking, and you're just a little bit like, I can feel those eyes.
Well, and it's like, and it's also just, first of all, who the fuck are you to tell me who I am? And there are so many times where I'm like, this is why I don't want to do it. This is why, because when you trigger people or when you push a button, like I've gotten hate messages and I'm like, because I told you that your father may have impacted you as a child, all of a sudden I'm the worst human in the world and you hate me and all of these things. It's like the pinch doesn't really match the ouch. But then I have to stop, and it's like, and especially like when TikTok doesn't show your content and all that goes viral is clickbait. And then you wonder why people aren't feeling well. And it's like, but we also have to just remember, like, helping one person means that I've done my job. I don't need to help a million, but if I can help one, then it's successful. So I know that my pain has a purpose, and I can't be scared about sharing that, because if I'm scared about sharing that, then other people are now susceptible to re-experiencing what I've gone through, and I don't want people to have to go through that.
Well, I know we're really pressed for time, so I'll get straight to the point. I have been devouring a lot of your podcast episodes. I especially love the interview you did with Helen Zohar, your mother. This one was pretty recent, and it was about marrying and being attracted to narcissists. And it's a super powerful episode. Anyone who's listening, I highly recommend you go to Sabrina's podcast, do the work, and go listen to it. But you had this one line in it, and it just niggled in my brain. And I am totally paraphrasing here, but essentially it was, are you looking for love, or are you looking to be rescued? And it resonated because I think there have been so many moments where I've gone, wow, my life feels really hectic right now. God, it would be nice to have someone alongside to riff on it with me. So my question is, and it's maybe slightly controversial, how many relationships do you see or think are out there that exist just because people are looking for a support system rather than love? And is that okay?
I mean, listen, if it works for you, sure, but I think that's why for so many years nowadays, I think it's like the most recent report was like, this is the lowest divorce rates that we've had. And it's like, that's not by accident. That's because now we actually get to choose who we want to be with. We actually have the opportunity that I don't have to marry somebody at 20 because that's the norm and I'm going to be the outcast in my community. We have the opportunity to say, wait a minute, I want to work on myself. I don't want to just be with somebody. And I think for so many, especially anxious attachment style, you just want to be saved. I just want to be out of here. I don't want to go through this anymore. Why can't I just find somebody that's going to come and get me? And the reality is that that's nobody's job but yourself. If you're waiting for someone to come get you, you're going to be waiting for a long fucking time, because that little you isn't scared that these other people are going to abandon them. That little you isn't worried that other people are going to hurt them. That little you is scared that you're going to abandon you again, because all you've done is self-abandon. Every time you leave and you do things that go against your grain and you go against your core and you start to act in ways that don't resonate with how you genuinely want to show up, that's self-abandoning. And you're telling yourself, I don't care about your needs, I care about theirs. Their opinion of me matters more. And so if you're always living for other people and you're always waiting for someone to come save you, then that means you're not enjoying the present moment that you're in. And that means that you're not going to be getting this time back, because time is the only finite resource that none of us are going to get back. So if you're waiting for someone to come save you, good luck, Godspeed. Good luck being in a relationship that's probably not satisfying or fulfilling you, but, oh, I have a body there. Oh, they're not going to leave me. Oh, they're not going to abandon me. But if you continue to abandon yourself, I'd so much rather be alone than in bad company. And I'd rather be alone because I've been there where oh, yay, they want me to be their girlfriend. Perfect. And then 7, 8 months later, I'm like, I don't even like this person. I'm not even that into them, but I just wanted somebody to come and get me and save me so bad. But I needed to do that for myself in order to actually receive real love and somebody that supports me and is by my side, not trying to come and save me and get me out of this place that I've been in myself because of the shit that I went through.
I feel personally attacked right now.
I was waiting.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
I was waiting to see if you were like, here's the thing. I just think it's human it's human to go, what's the easiest way out? What's the quickest way out? How can I just get out of here? So of course we think, oh, let's just this be a Disney movie and let somebody just come get me. And it's a night. And it's like, we were lied to. We were told lies all of our lives. So it's not shocking that little you is like, but I thought a prince was going to come get me. It's like, all right, well, I'm the prince now. So here we are.
Well, sticking to the concept of rescuing just for a minute, there will be, I know a lot of people listening thinking, well, I don't want to be rescued. I'm just attracted to people who are in leadership, which I've read is reportedly one of the symptoms of a love style that particularly looks for rescuing. What are some of the other, inverted commas, symptoms of a rescuing type relationship that might help people realize if they're inadvertently doing this?
So it's one of those things that I don't have hard and fast, this equals this. But if you're hoping someone's going to save you, then what that means is you're so disconnected from your own wants, needs, and desires. Do you know what triggers you? Do you know where you feel pains in your body? Do you know when you get anxious, what happens in your body and where that comes from? Do you know the narrative that starts to play? When have you ever felt that before? Where has that played? If it's always, I need this, then I'll be this. Oh, why aren't they answering me? And why can't this guy just come and get me? And it's like, listen, babe. I know every girl, we all want the wealthy and successful and the doting and the guy that cooks and he cleans. And it's like, maybe he exists in one planet, in one sphere, in one aspect. But this perfect knight is not going to come get you. And if you're always waiting for someone to come save you, that's in a victim mentality. You're in the mode of, it's happening to me, not it's happening for me. Because I'm waiting, right? Like a princess, I just sit and I just wait. So you're not proactive. You're not actually getting what it is that you genuinely want and need. You're waiting to be chosen because someone saving you means that they're coming to get you and take you out of this realm that you're in. But that that hell that you're in, that anxiety trap, is because little you is in there, not because anybody can come get you from that. Because you could have an amazing partner. You could have somebody that's there for you. But if you haven't done the work on yourself, then you haven't gone to save yourself from all of these things. You're just going to keep finding more issues. And it's an endless pit of needs that will go unmet because they can't meet those for you. You can only meet them for yourself. So if you find yourself dating people, nothing's ever good enough. You're consistently finding issues. You're just waiting for them to do things. There's this victim mentality of why does this keep happening to me? It's like, I am the first one to call you on your shit. Stop allowing it and stand the fuck up and decide what you actually want in a relationship and what you need in a relationship. Start showing up as that so that you can start to receive that as well.
That's amazing. And I actually read somewhere, and when I say read, I actually mean I saw a TikTok about it. Well, someone said they're called fairy tale romances because they're fairy tales. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's true.
We have to remember, it's like when people will say, but in the movie, and it's like, that's fucking scripted. These are things that music, movies, it's like my brother's a filmmaker and he always says, he's like, in movies, you have these steps to making a movie. That's not real life. You don't have your protagonist and you don't have the main characters. No, real life isn't, oh my God, when he meets me, everything's going to change in the play. We all want that. We all want how to lose a guy in 10 days. I could be the worst version of myself and someone's still going to love me for it. And I'm going to get the playboy to change their mind about things and choose me. Yeah, that's called a movie. That's scripted. Real life is, oh, that guy never called me after we hooked up on the first date because they don't want a relationship and nothing I do is going to change that.
Okay, I'm being bold. This one's a bit personal. Have you had any personal experience with this that you feel comfortable sharing? And I mean, maybe a time when you might have gone for someone who you may have subconsciously have thought that they might have been able to rescue you, I guess?
Specifically my ex, my big, my narcissistic ex that I married, that was my father. I thought, finally, I'll never forget, after our first date, I called my mom and I said I met my husband. And I was like, that's it. He's the one. Because I genuinely believed he was super successful in his career and he had all those things and he was he was super avoidant. So he was very in control of his emotions at the on the onset, but he was wildly narcissistic. And every time he would gaslight me and put me down, I would believe more that he was saving me and that he was coming to get me. And then what would I do without him? I know that mentality. That's why I can call people out so hard because I've been there. I was her. And I've had those relationships where I was hoping people were going to come and save me, or like my ex prior to him, where I just thought, okay, if I just move in with him, everything's going to be great. And it was like, no, I moved in with him and I was still unhappy. And then I ended up getting my own apartment. And like, I always wanted someone to come take care of me. And it's like, and here we are now where my business is taking care of the household because my partner and I both work for my business. So it's like I was waiting for someone to come save me. And in the end, I just needed to come and fucking save myself so that I could create the life I wanted and not take the life that everyone told me I need to have. I don't need to have the guy that makes more money than me so that he can take care of me, because then I'm going to be 45 years old and I can't get the fuck out of this relationship because this person controls all the finances. So I made that decision to save myself, to get myself out of that shit, and to meet a partner that is a partner, not my dad.
I imagine it takes a lot of work to do that, to get to that point.
It takes a lot of discrediting your own thoughts and like calling yourself out on your shit, going against your core beliefs. Like, we have to remember, we were taught between our parents and society and the movies and the things, especially like I'm 33. So in the 90s, like everything was a rom-com. And I even listen to the music sometimes and I'm like, no wonder we're fucked up. You're telling me my love is all I have to give. I'll do anything for you. And it's like the Backstreet Boys and the Spice Girls, all of those, they taught us that love is all you need. And it's like, that's a farce. Love is not all you need. I wish it was. If it was all we need, then the whole world would be okay.
Okay. Say someone works on healing and rescuing themselves. And I think this is especially relevant for anyone who is coming out of a divorce or rebuilding their lives in a separation. How do you think that impacts their approach to dating? Like, what does healed dating maybe look like? So we have that picture in our minds.
So I was married to my ex. So I understand the divorce and the, oh my God, what the fuck am I going to do? And I have to go through the paperwork. And how am I going to tell people that I've been married? And, you know, it depends, because it's like, there are some people that have beautiful marriages that are amicable the way they end, and both people realize they've outgrown themselves. And it's like, that happens, you know, where both people come and say, listen, we've been together for 10, 15 years. We were great in the beginning. I want something different. You want something different. You move on. That is okay. You just get back out there. But I think it really depends on the circumstances. If you're somebody that came from an abusive, like I came from a narcissist. So when I was spit out through the other side, I was a shell of a human. I didn't know myself. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know who I was. I took full ownership. I thought he was the perfect person and that I was the fuck up and I'm the worst human being. And it was, you know, that whole narrative that I was convincing myself of. So I think the first step out of a divorce, if you really want to start dating, is one, to accept the situation as it was, to stop villainizing yourself and to not villainize the other person, but to take accountability and ownership of your part in it, their part in it, and what you allowed. Because yes, I have empathy for people that are victims of abuse, of course. But then there's also those people that are not necessarily victims of divorce. They just have somebody that's really avoidant and super disrespectful and rude that used to just walk out on them. And at the end of the day, if you come out of that saying, I just like narcissists, what am I going to say? I just like guys that are avoidant. It's like, no, that's what you allow. That's what you allow because perhaps when you were growing up, your parents were super dismissive or your parents held you to a high esteem. And so now in relationships, that feels familiar. And so you reenact that because if you can change this person, maybe you could have changed what happened when you were a kid. I see your face. What's going on?
I just imagine that would hit home for a lot of people who are listening right now.
I know it because it hit me too. When I realized, like, holy fuck, why did I have no boundaries? Because I was raised by a people-pleasing mother and my father was a narcissist. So of course I'm not going to have learned any of this. So when I was dating people and it's like, well, yeah, I just kept reenacting what I learned when I was a child because it's natural for you to, that's what you were taught. So now it's understanding that when you break up, I always like to look, what is it that you need in a relationship? It's shocking when I ask people, what is it that you want in a relationship? You see their face. It's kind of like, I never thought to ask that. And it's like, I know, because especially if you're a people pleaser or if you grew up like that, as having needs met, that was you, that made you selfish. How dare you ask your parents to do something, but you're not dating your mom or dad. So now it's about giving yourself permission to feel the things that you were never allowed to take up space in ways that you weren't allowed to, and to say, I'm sick and tired of the bullshit that I dealt with. Moving forward, here's what I'm not willing to put up with. That's how you assess your boundaries. Don't date if all you're going to do is talk about your ex-husband.
Oh my God, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, and so I'm saying, like, we've all been there. I'll never forget going on a date and talking about my ex, and the guy looked at me and he was like, "Are you sure you're over him?" And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah." And it's like, then when you realize when you're actually over it, when you've actually moved on and how you'd never mention them or you just like don't bring them up unless like, then the only time I brought up my ex was like, oh, I went away here. Oh, who'd you go with? My ex took me. And it's like, yeah, because, or, oh, yeah, I remember this one time when I was with it's like a memory. Like you're explaining something in your life versus on the dates where I'd constantly be like, yeah, my piece of shit ex or, oh, God, my ex used to do this. And it's like, it's okay when you're dating to talk about how'd your last relationship end and what did it teach you about yourself. The last thing anybody wants to hear about is your ex, though.
How do you know all this? It's so true.
Don't date if that's what you're going to do.
All right. Do you think that sometimes in today's dating culture, especially with dating apps, we can get so caught up in the act of achieving the goal of finding love that we forget to focus on whether we truly love this person? Or is the challenge and activity of hoping to win love just part of the process?
So if you're triggered and that's what you're used to, that'll be your process. So I have to earn love and I have to get it. And it can't, oh, I know it doesn't just come to me. I have to jump through hoops. Sure, if that's what you believe love is, then that's what you're going to keep doing. But if you're coming at this from a place of like acceptance and understanding, well, then no, it's about being vulnerable, being open, and genuinely connecting with somebody versus attaching to them. I don't want you to attach to anybody and start creating this narrative and thinking that this whole thing's going to happen. I want you to genuinely and deeply connect with somebody. And I think that what happens now, we're in a time where people are chasing a feeling more than they're actually looking at a person. And if they're chasing the, am I going to get chosen? Do I like this high? Do I have the sparks? Do I have the butterfly? Feelings. The problem with feelings is those are momentary. So when that fades and then you're left with this person, well, what are you going to do with this person? Is this actually the relationship that you're here for? That's why so many people will bounce out and bop off. And I think a lot of people are so focused on that end goal. When I get a boyfriend, I'll be happy. But then they get it and it's never enough because that's not the issue. The issue isn't that you don't have a partner. That's why you're miserable with your life. If that's the issue, that's codependent. So you're only happy if you have somebody in your life. No, instead, what we want to do is go out and actually see if this person's compatible with us, if this person has the bandwidth to be in a relationship with us, if this person can support us in the ways that we need to be supported. Just because you can't doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That could just be that that's not your person.
All right. I know that we are pressed for time, so I'm going to release you and just thank you so much. You've dropped so many truth bombs in just a short amount of time. But before we finish, something I'm doing is asking all my interviewees what their favorite selfish self-care activity is. So for instance, everyone knows I love canceling plans if I don't feel like it serves me or honors my body to go out and I need to rest. So I don't feel bad doing that. But what is your selfish self-care activity?
Oh, I'm so picking up what you're putting down on that. I love saying no. Like that's my setting a boundary now and being like, I don't want to do that. It feels great. For selfish self-care, oh, I have definitely stayed home to smoke a J and take a bath over going out to an event like all the fucking time. And I think for me, I love to take, that's my partner and I, that's how we connect now. We love to do tubs, like bathtubs, hot tub. We have one in our complex. I think for me, my selfish self-care thing that I do is I don't add things to my calendar week of. Sorry, fuck off. If you want to talk to me, you try to say, hey, let's schedule something Friday. No, it's Tuesday. This week is done. And I learned that from my partner. He's very by his schedule. And when we started dating, I'd be like, hey, I'm free now Friday. And he'd be like, no, we didn't plan that this week. And I was like, oh. And what that's done for me is it helps me have control of my own life because then I'm a projector and I will look at my schedule and go, oh, I have 20 minutes open. Great. Let me fit it with something. And then I'm stressed and I'm burned out and I'm overexhausted. And so for me now, I've learned to say no and that's it. If you don't schedule with me ahead of time, that week is off limits. See you later. I'm tubbing.
We should all tub more.
Oh, it helps your cortisol. It helps you sleep. I meditate. We do 3 meditations a day. Like I'm very fucking serious about my self-care. And that's why I don't allow last minute plans. Don't fuck with my vibe.
Well, Sabrina, thank you. You were amazing. And I'm incredibly grateful for your time. And thank you for doing your pod because you're helping so many people out here. Even if you don't see them, they are all across the world. Like, for instance, your pod was actually sent to me by a follower who said, you have to listen to this. And that's how you and I got here right now.
Well, see, and that right there is what I want to leave people off of, because it's true. You never know what can happen. And I know a lot of people might feel really down and really out, but at any second, you could go to the corner store and meet somebody new. So let's glass half full versus empty. I know it might feel like shit and you might be single and you don't know, but at any fucking second, you could get a match, you could get a message, you could get an email, you could get a DM. Anything could change in your life right now. So instead of committing yourself to the life that you've lived, get excited about the life that you want and get ready for it, because at any second it could come. Then I have to ask you, are you going to be ready for it when it does?
Perfect mic drop to end on. Okay, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Let's see you soon.
Thank you for having me.
How good is Sabrina? She's just so authentic and real. I love it. But did that question resonate with you at all? Are you looking for love, or are you looking to be rescued? I think it's a really interesting thought and something to keep in mind whenever you're on the dating wagon. And maybe it's okay if you want to be rescued too, but I always think being aware of where it feels in your body and where you're sitting on the spectrum, it's really important, just to make sure you don't end up with someone who's totally not right for you. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. All my socials are in the show notes. You can reach me there. And remember, if you're going through a separation or divorce, or even healing from a breakup, and you're looking to join a close community of people who are going through exactly the same thing, have a look at the Dynamic Detachment program in the show notes. And as always, I am so happy you're here. I hope you're having a great 2024, and I'll see you next week.